So today's project is going to be working on this dump trailer. It was given to me by my neighbor, so that was pretty cool. And it used to be one of those like metal box, like regular lawnmower trailers, but the metal box kind of rotted off, so he put this wooden box on it. But as you can see, it's starting to rot out as well, so it needs a new box. Like I can just basically take it and crumble it in parts and pieces, so it's gonna need a new one. So the first step is I'm gonna measure the dimensions of it, get the width, and then get the length of it and the height, so that I can start disassembling this and see what I have for metal. I'm thinking I'm gonna do a metal frame and then have wooden sides and a wooden bottom in it. I think that'll be a lot stronger, and then when the wood rots out, eventually I can just replace the wood and not have to rebuild the whole thing. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So let's get to measuring. So I drew this rough drawing to show you what I'm thinking about, and it's going to be 30 inches wide by 42 inches in length, and I'm going to be using some square tubing, and I'm going to be cutting it at 45s on the ends, and then I'm going to be adding in these two little braces here that's going to tie into the bottom of the trailer. And I measured it at 13.5 inches tall, but I might change that around a little bit, not too sure about that. But now I gotta go find and dig out some square tubing. So I got all that square tubing laid out here, and it's 1 1/4 by 1 1/4 by about a 1/16 of an inch thick, so it should be strong enough. And I think I got enough of it here to do the frame of the box. So I think now I'm going to start laying this stuff out and cutting it up. So I think I'm going to start removing the rust off these pieces of square tubing, and to do that I'm going to be using the flap wheel on an angle grinder to remove all the burrs from cutting them on the chop saw. And then I'm going to go back over it with this Gorilla pad. This is to remove all the rust and the scale off of them. There's not much left of it, but hopefully it'll last long enough to do all 4 pieces that I have here. So yeah, let's get to it. So I got all these pieces cleaned up, but now I'm gonna basically put 45s on these pieces here so I can butt them up and weld them together. So I've got this thing set up on 3 pieces of angle iron, and I've got that piece of angle iron right there clamped in there so that can't it can't twist. And then the reason I've got 3 pieces of angle iron is because when you use 3 of them, it doesn't have a choice but to be level pretty much. And I'm only going to do half of it at a time, and then I'll do the other half, which is sitting right there, and then we'll put those 2 together and just kind of tack it up first and make sure everything's square and flat and everything. And got a square here, and looks pretty good. So I'm going to tack this up, and then I'm going to move on to the next one. So now that I got that frame all welded up, I think my next step is going to be taking this old box off and putting that new one on and kind of mocking it up and seeing how it looks and how I'm going to mount it. So I got that frame all mocked up and sitting on there, but turns out this piece right here is starting to rust out. It ain't gonna last very long, so I think I'm gonna do away with it and do something different. I was gonna put like square tubing here. Obviously this one isn't long enough, but I was gonna put square tubing between these 2 and then just bolt to this. But instead I think I'm gonna have to figure out a way to get the square tubing or weld something on the square tubing to bolt to these supports here. I could just weld these to it, but I kind of want to keep it to where you can take it all apart and everything in case you need to do something. So I think I've got an idea, but it's kind of hard to explain. So I'm just going to start cutting and welding, and y'all will figure it out as I go. So before I start welding this thing together, I thought I'd go over a couple things and kind of show you what I'm doing. You saw me make these brackets here, and I got 4 of them. And as you can see, they stick up about 1/4 of an inch above the original uprights, and that's what I wanted because I'm going to have square tubing, and it's going to sit right on top like that, and then I'm going to stitch weld it together. And then you can see I have on the frame here, I have some lines marked out where those square pieces of square tubing are going to go. I'm going to have 2 of them. And then as you can also see off camera, I tacked in this piece of angle iron here, and what that did was it set my distance between these 2 pieces here and here, these uprights or these supports. And I didn't want them to be spreading apart or twisting on me while I was trying to square everything up and get it tacked in and welded in. So now that I've got that all done, and I've got that piece right here, this support up front all squared up and everything, I think I'm ready to start welding in these pieces of square tubing here. And then after that, I'll get this took apart some more and get these uprights tacked in and welded in solid. So now I got those brackets welded in. I got those axle supports bolted back on and the axle and wheels put back on just for temporary. Uh, Now I'm going to start working on mounting this front support. So I made some bushings here. These are going to go inside the frame and then it's going to get welded up on both ends. What this is for is so when I bolt on that front support, it doesn't crush the square tubing when you go to tighten it down. So I made two of them here, and I made it out of a I believe this is an oil pump drive shaft from a Kohler Courage engine, and I cut it down, and then I had to drill out the inside a little bit to 5/16, and then I went over to the bench grinder and just beveled the end real good, and that's going to give me a good place to weld. So I'm going to insert these into the frame and we're going to weld it up. So you just saw me cut out and make these tabs here, and these are going to get butted up to the frame like so, and I'm going to weld them on there, and that's going to give me a place for my wood to mount to. So now that I got those tabs all welded on, I cut out some pieces of angle iron here, and they're going to get welded up like that, and that's going to give me a place to mount the boards that go on the side. So I'm going to work on drilling some holes in these pieces of angle iron here and get them all welded up. So now that I got those side supports all welded on, I'm going to start cutting out some wood here. And what I'm using are these old deck boards, and they're 1 inch thick and they're 5 inches wide. And they used to be 5.5, but they had these radiused edges on them, and we cut those off on both sides. So now they're 5 inches wide, and they're pressure treated, so they should last a long time and they should work pretty good. So now that I got those boards all fitted, I'm going to start taking this thing apart and getting it ready for some paint. So for primer, I'm going to be using this rusty metal primer by Rust-Oleum here. That should hopefully seal that bare metal up and keep it from wanting to rust in the future. And then on top of that, for paint, I'm going to be using this gloss black Rust-Oleum here. I'm just going to be brushing this on. Not looking for perfection here, but should turn out pretty good when I'm done. So let's get to brushing this paint on. So I got all that wood coated. I'm just using some used motor oil, so that should soak in pretty good. Nothing fancy. I just got a tub of it here. And I got that frame all painted up. It's ready to go. It's dry. The tongue is ready here. And I got the axle supports. They're all done here. And then over here by the heater, I have some things currently drying. I have the front support there. And then that's right down there, that's the mechanism for the to make the bed dump. And right there, that's part of the hitch. So once all these parts are done drying, I'm going to start putting this thing back together.